One of the places where I feel our compassion is most missing, where we've gone most astray ethically, is in our relationship to animals, particularly animals used in meat production. We have factory farms, we have feedlots. I don't know if you're aware of the treatment of animals. We put them in confinement. We house them under circumstances where they have very little movement available to them, in some cases none. And we restrict their movement so dramatically, and then we feed them, we give them feedstuffs that are completely unnatural to their physiology, and basically subject them to unremitting and unconscionable cruelty. And then we prop up the whole system and keep them alive by feeding them massive amounts of antibiotics, thereby guaranteeing that we will breed antibiotic-resistant bacteria and render the most powerful and important weapons we have against infectious disease impotent. It's insane. And it's a crime against nature, the way these animals are forced to live and endure. There are people who are vegetarians because animals are killed and they don't want to be part of that violence. And I respect that position, and I respect people for taking ethical positions in life. And I respect people who live by their ethics. And if that's your ethic, I admire that, I appreciate that, I support that. But that's not what I'm talking about right now. I'm not talking about that the animals are killed. That's true. I'm talking, though, about the lives they live in factory farms and feedlots. What industrialized meat production does to the animals. Sometimes it's justified, and people will say, well, we're given dominion over the animals. And it says so in the Bible. Well, I'm not a Bible scholar or expert, but here's how I think about that. Let's say I have two sons, and I go out at night, and I say when I'm leaving to the older one, you're in charge while I'm gone. And I say to the younger boy, until I get back, will you please do what your older brother says? I am, in effect, giving the older boy dominion over the younger one until I get back, right? But I don't expect to come home and find out that the older boy has cooked and eaten the younger one, or subjected him to some bizarre medical experiment, or otherwise caused him pain and suffering. I don't expect that at all, and I would be very upset to find out that it occurred. Dominion to me is responsibility. It's accountability. It's stewardship. It's to treat with respect. And it is not a license to exploit. It is not a license to cause pain. It is not a license to be indifferent to the suffering that you inflict on another creature. Thank you. How many of you, I'd like to see hands if I may, have ever had a relationship with another animal, a non-human creature, known another animal, and that relationship has enriched you as a human being? It's given you something. Yes, thank you. Thank you. I think a lot of hands went up here. It's true for me as well. We have a very schizoid relationship to animals in our society. We have laws against cruelty to animals. Every one of the 50 states has legislation to protect animals from cruelty. But in every one of the 50 states, the legislation that exists exempts animals destined for human consumption. So that means that if it's conventional farming practice, you can do it legally to an animal regardless of the amount of pain it causes, regardless of the misery that's involved. There is no legislation to protect farmed animals, hardly at all. And as a result of that, we have this bizarre thing where we will treat our cats and our dogs and other companion animals very well for the most part. We will feed them, we pay their vet bills, we sleep with them, they sleep on our beds, we give them names, they're part of our families. We love them. They love us back. It's beautiful. But then we call other animals dinner, and by virtue of making that distinction between animals we want to eat and animals we don't, we say those animals don't deserve any protection. Now, there are organizations like HSUS, Humane Society of the United States, Mercy for Animals, Compassion Over Killing. There's a lot of groups that are trying to expose what is being done to animals behind the closed doors of factory farms. And every once in a while, they go undercover and bring some footage out. And it's terrible. People see it, and it's just grotesque. And sometimes there's fines, and sometimes there's the facility is shut down for a time. But business as usual usually goes on. Right now, the ministry is trying to shut down those undercover investigations with legislation that is known as ag-gag bills. They've been passed in 4 states. They are under consideration in 17 other ones. Most of these bills were written by ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, which is a corporate-funded group that basically is trying to create laws that make it illegal, make it a felony to take videotape or photographs of what's going on in factory farms. Now, they're trying to keep you unaware. Thou shalt not be aware, basically, is what they're saying. They don't want you to see. They don't want you to know. There's a war going on against awareness, basically. You know, I see it so many places. Last fall in California, we had an effort to pass a bill, Prop 37, that would have mandated the labeling of genetically engineered foods in this state. It narrowly was defeated. Monsanto and its allies spent more than $50 million in out-of-state money to defeat the bill. They don't want labeling. I do. Do you? Yes. We really need it. We need it. Otherwise, people don't know. There is a non-GMO shopping guide. You can get that, nongmoshoppingguide.com. And you can find out which foods do and which don't have genetically engineered ingredients. But that's difficult. We really need to have labeling. And they don't want it. And so they came up with an ad campaign to defeat Prop 37 in which they said that if it passed and labeling was mandated, it would raise the cost of the average California family's annual food bill by $400. Now, I did some research to find out where that $400 figure came from. It turns out that Monsanto and the Biotech Industry Organization hired a PR company in Maine, the state of Maine. I guess they couldn't find one in California. And this particular public relations company has no economists on its staff, has never done any work in economic analysis whatsoever. But what this PR company did was they created some focus groups, and they tested different numbers to find out which number would be high enough to scare people, but not so high as to seem incredible and lose validity in people's eyes. And that's how the number $400 was arrived at. The presumption was that it was arrived at by economic analysis. It was not. I don't understand, actually. You know, I saw some bottled water recently that said gluten-free on it. They put the label on. There's no wheat in bottled water. There never has been. But they can do that, and it's going to cost $400 to put a label, no, you know, genetically engineered ingredients? No, it doesn't cost anything to do that. But they will lie. They will be deceptive. They really don't care about the truth. Monsanto's been telling us for a long time that we need genetically engineered foods to feed the hungry, that there's increasing numbers of us on this planet, and unless we go with the science on it and use these techniques and technology, we're betraying. It's elitist. We're betraying the world's poor. That is such hogwash. I got to tell you, if Monsanto and the other biotech companies were interested in feeding the world's hungry, there are certain predictable characteristics that they would be working to develop in the crops that they're modifying. They would be trying to develop crops with increased yields. Crops that can grow on marginal soils, substandard soils, alkaline or acidic soils. They would be developing crops that can tolerate drought, that can grow without expensive inputs of fertilizer and herbicides and expensive irrigation systems. They would be developing crops, the seeds of which would be free to people, to farmers. There are certain, they'd be working on crops with enhanced nutrient profiles, maybe a more complete protein or more vitamins or minerals. Do you know we've had genetically engineered crops now for 20 years? There is not a single GMO crop with any of the characteristics I just described, either in existence or in the pipeline to my knowledge. That's not what they're doing. They're genetically engineering crops that are tolerant of their herbicides, their weed killers, Roundup Ready soy, Roundup Ready corn, Roundup Ready cotton, Roundup Ready canola, Roundup Ready. It's ready for Roundup. Roundup is a weed killer. It's an herbicide that Monsanto makes. And when you plant a Roundup Ready genetically engineered crop, the farmer can spray Roundup at massive doses, and it'll kill all the other plants, but it won't kill the genetically engineered plants which have been engineered to tolerate Roundup. And so we have, in this country, 90 million acres of genetically engineered corn and 120 million acres of genetically engineered soy growing. Do you know what our total fruit and vegetable acreage is? 18 million acres. The vast majority of our agricultural land is used to grow genetically engineered corn and soy, and it's not for tofu, it's not for tempeh, it's not for fresh summer sweet corn. None of it is, really. It's for feedstuffs for factory farms. They're feeding it to livestock. It's for high fructose corn syrup. It's for isolated soy proteins that are used in all kinds of processed foods, and soy oil that's made into all kinds of vegetable oil products and mixed into all kinds of things with hexane. It's used to, in the processed food industry, the corn is also used to fuel cars. It's not used to feed the hungry. It offends me, actually, that they say they're trying to help the world's poor when they're harming everybody, especially the world's poor.